Dzień dobry wszystkim, witam w kolejnym spotkaniu z programem English Teaching i InstaLing. Wtorkowe popołudnie, godzina 18, tradycyjna pora naszych spotkań. Dzisiaj po raz kolejny widzimy się z Mariolą Bogucką, która tym razem będzie uczyć nas o tym, jak się uczyć. Dobrze zrozumiałem z tytułu Twojej prezentacji? Super.
Może nie uczyć, tylko na ten temat porozmawiamy sobie i też potrzebuję wsparcia.
Super. Zapraszam do wpisywania się na listę obecności. Lista obecności za moment. Link do listy pojawi się na dole ekranu. Również będzie opublikowany na czacie, także będzie można do tego swobodnie wrócić. Dzisiejsze spotkanie organizowane jest przez program English Teaching i przez InstaLing. Tak jak co tydzień we wtorek widzimy się przez 60 minut. Po mniej więcej 50 minutach dzisiejszego spotkania zaproszę uczestników do zadawania pytań. Tutaj też myślę, że będzie chwila na to, żeby podzielić się wiedzą, spostrzeżeniami w dwie strony. Mariola, zaczynamy.
All right. Hello everyone. I don't know yet who I'm talking to. I hope I'm going to have a list and at least know some of the names. I do hope, as always, that we have met sometime before. We met in the past in better times, but at least, well, you don't have to travel. You can't. You don't have to get cold because it's freezing cold outside, or get stuck in the snow. And at the moment we're staying in the country, and actually we haven't left our place for 2 weeks now. We've got enough to eat, frozen bread and milk and salt and some vegetable, and we can survive another week. Otherwise we'll have to call a tractor, or we'll have to call somebody to drag us from the place where we're staying at the moment. I wonder how many of you have a situation like that as well. All right, I can't see the private chat, and I can't see any names there, and I wonder whether I could ask you questions, and then could you raise your hand to say yes or no. Well, if not, then I'll just talk, and I hope that you'll have some questions. You'd expect that today we're just going to have a session about introducing a new component to our teaching, and the component is oh no, sorry, I got it wrong. No, it's not this one. Is this one is the learning to learn component, which I guess we could introduce into our regular teaching, and we could actually at any age. So it does apply to teachers who work in primary schools, even lower primary, in exactly the same way as it applies to upper primary, and even university students or people at any age. If you study any other language, if you are involved in learning, I guess not just languages, but anything, then there is always a problem how to take in all the information that you get, how to recall the information when needed, or how to master new skills that you want to learn. So it's, I would say, a very, very important component, which I think, I don't know whether you're going to share my opinion, which I think is somehow neglected. And when I mentioned the fact that it's not just a talk and a lecture, but actually I would like you to perhaps help me at the end of the session, when we meet again for our question and answer session, perhaps you could help me a little bit with my problem. let me start with a quote. This is a quote from look, 8-year-old child. Right? So in the book, which I took the quotation from, and it's actually a book that was published quite a few years ago. It's a book by Robert Fisher. I don't know whether you can see it. Robert Fisher, Learning, Teaching Children to Learn. And one of the quotations, because every now and then in each chapter, the author provides a quotation from children, what children think about it. And one of the questions that he asked was, who is the best sort of teacher? And an 8-year-old child, I bet without any preparation into good teaching or discussion about teachers like that, he said, the best sort of teacher is one who helps you do what you couldn't do by yourself, but doesn't do it for you. All right. In English, actually the difference between learning and teaching is absolutely significant in the language, right? There are two different words to talk about teaching and to talk about learning. We've got two different words, but they're very, very similar. And they might be confused somehow, right? So in English, teaching in Polish means nauczać, whereas learning means uczyć się. Very often nauczać is kind of uczyć is used. Very often we say ona uczy w szkole podstawowej, ona uczy w szkole średniej. I don't think anybody says ona naucza, right? Although you're a teacher, nauczyciel. And the difference might seem kind of insignificant because the reflective bits at the end, reflective pronoun in Polish, might be somehow not heard. Right? So the significant linguistic difference between teaching and learning, I don't think is very much stressed in Polish. Right? And now let me start talking about my problem, and I'm going to use a little bit of Polish in it, but let me explain the context. All right, so since the very beginning of the pandemic, and since the time we've moved to the country, and it's been now almost a year, because we moved exactly, we can remember exactly the date, we moved on the 16th of March. I offered my help to two girls who live just about a kilometer away. And they actually are only neighbors, or maybe even less than that. The reason why I have two girls, because one girl is a neighbor, another one lives in a couple of kilometers away, is that they cannot really cope with English, and now with online learning, it's even worse. So I have regularly three sessions a week, and the only thing we can do is actually do the homework. We haven't got time for anything else, and I'll tell you why. Because the homework they get is for someone who's got problems with English actually so difficult that if I want them to do the homework and not to do it for them, we spend a lot of time unraveling and going down to the basics. Yesterday, when I was getting ready for the session, I went to one of the girls and I said, Martynko, can I have your notebook, or at least the exercise book that goes with your textbook? She said, I only have the exercise book. I don't have a notebook. I don't have any notes whatsoever. Whatever the teacher asks us to do, I do it in the exercise book or on the computer, and then I send it to the teacher. So she's got no record whatsoever what she sends to the teacher, unless she keeps it in the computer, which I doubt of. And the only thing she's got is actually her note. And let us look at just 3 small examples. Well, this is my first example. All right. I hope, oh no, can I have it? Should I make it bigger? Yeah, this is what it is. As you can see, this is a grammar exercise, but because the level of the 2 girls is much lower for the book, then they've got a lot of problems actually with vocabulary. And when doing the tasks, they had to write down the words, and actually they did that at school, probably when they had lunch. I'm not sure. I think she wrote the words and the explanation for the words after a class. And as you can see, there are things like leaves, liście. All right. And then there is, for example, living, środki utrzymania, which is not exactly what it is, right? Living. Because the sentence is, Angela is living, or Angela lives in Paris. Can you see any środki utrzymania there? Don't think so. And then you've got things like, it gets, dostawać, right? But the sentence is, it gets harder and harder, or it should be, and as it is underlined here, it's getting harder and harder to have a family in the city. Some things are okay, but then all of a sudden you've got a phrase like usually does, zazwyczaj wykonuje. And, well, leaves, if you can find leaves anywhere in the exercise, well, you'd be disappointed, because the word is right at the very end, the 10th sentence, and the sentence goes like this. The train to my mum's village leaves, or is leaving, at 9 o'clock every morning. But when she looked up the dictionary, she immediately spotted leaf, a leaf, and leaves as plural. How can you study? How can you learn anything if you got notes like this? And these are the only notes she's got because she doesn't have a notebook that she could take notes by herself. But let us have a look at the second example. This was a topic about the weather. And once again, look at this. Boiling, either gorąco owrzenie, then you had freezing, zamrożenie. How's the weather in London? That was the sentence. Jak tam? Jak tam co? All right. Lód is okay. Like, lubię. Yeah, but the sentence, the exercise which followed was, what's the weather like in London? It's got nothing to do with lubię. And warm is okay. All right. I imagine that if it was a lesson about the weather, and if all these words were actually new words, and in the exercise below, you do have phrases like, as you can imagine, boiling hot or freezing cold. And these are phrases. And when children go to the dictionary, and I actually check it in the very back of the book, where they've got the Polish English translation, probably they wouldn't find things like freezing cold or boiling hot. Otherwise, both freezing and boiling mean, well, are used in a different context. So as you can see, a tiny exercise takes an hour to do. And I've got a lot of problems with actually persuading or convincing them, look, you need to have a notebook, you need to write. For example, you need to draw a thermometer, right, like this, and then you will write below, it's freezing cold, and actually above the scale, boiling hot, warm, cool, very warm, no, sorry, very cold, cold, and so on. And it's freezing today, or it's freezing cold today. Actually, with us, it's -7, so it's not too bad. I wouldn't call it freezing cold, -7. But, well, Jarek, who lives in Białystok, would probably have a chance to say it's freezing cold in Białystok. I wish we could chat about it because the weather is such a wonderful, wonderful thing to chat about. But once you've got first, you introduce vocabulary and you actually ask kids to work on the vocabulary, then you can focus on the grammar. And usually vocabulary comes first and grammar comes second. But kids' notes, the girls' notes are basically like this. Oh, just one more very quick example, right? Once again, circle the correct option to complete sentences. And again, it's packed with vocabulary they don't know. There are also grammar problems. For example, phrasal verbs, right? But, well, turn off, switch on, turn off, skręcać. I don't think it's in this context, is it? Because it's here is about turning off the radio or switching on the radio. I'm afraid the answer is wrong there. So basically, this is my problem and this is my question to you. What can we do? And obviously, I have to tell you that the girls are in their 8th grade now. On Monday or Thursday last week, they had the mock exam. And the exam which awaits them is egzamin ósmoklasisty. I'm doing my best and I would love to even spend more time with them. But the problem is that they don't have the time. Well, basically, they don't have the time. They don't have the time to spend more time on English classes because they would say, they call me ciocia, right? And they say, ciocia, how long are we going to spend? Ciocia, ile dzisiaj będzie miała ta lekcja? Bo my jeszcze mamy fizykę i z chemii mamy sprawdziane i coś jeszcze. I wanted to have a regular course for them, and we never really started the course because they never had the time. The last homework was about writing a letter, a letter and email as an answer to a very, very short email in the book. I'm sure you know the task. Just 50 words, just 50 words. And one of them would say, ale ja nie wiem, co napisać. Ja nie wiem, co napisać po polsku. Bo ja nie wiem, co napisać. Ja nie będę tego wiedziała, to jest za trudne. And then obviously, step by step, we went through the task. And then it was a problem because we had to write the task and they wrote it in the computer. And one of them said, moja rodzina też była zaciekawiona przepisami because the email was about cooking and healthy diet. And when I said, look, we don't have, obviously this was in Polish, wiesz co, pomyśl o słówku, które na pewno znasz, to jest jedno z prostszych słów w języku angielskim, wyłącz język polski, skup się tylko na języku angielskim. Jestem święcie przekonana, że to nie musi być zaciekawiona. Może być jakieś inne słowo, które wyrazi to samo. Eventually, they did come up with sentences like, my family like your recipes too. And at the end of it, when we went through it step by step, the one who said, I don't know what to write in Polish, she said, oh, I didn't know it would be so easy. And then she said, and then I said, look, you've got 3 sentences. Perhaps you'd like to write one more sentence. Shall we work on one more sentence just to make it a bit longer? And the answer was, what do you think? Pani powiedziała, że ma być krótko. 50 słów wystarczy, a ja już mam 57. What can you say? What can you say to that? At least I was very happy that eventually they said, it wasn't that difficult. That's all. So basically, this is what I'd love to help them, and I would love to do anything and spend a lot of time going through this repetitorium ósmoklasisty or any other book that they have, and the tests which are produced by oh but gosh, this program which is said learn or whatever. You know what I'm talking about. But very often the answer is, oh, can we have only one session this week because we've got Polish and maths and this and this and that. And I thought that I'd show you something which psychologists call learned helplessness. And I would definitely say that that the two girls who I happen to teach have got this kind of attitude which we have to deal with. First of all, we have to change their attitude to learning, and just inject a little bit of optimism and kind of positive thinking, which they don't have. They don't have at all. And if you read through the list, this learned helplessness is an attitude that shows unwillingness. So they are unwilling to face challenges. To będzie na pewno bardzo trudne. Koniec, kropka. Ja sobie sama z tym nie poradzę. They views problems as tests of ability. And at this point, we can't be surprised at that. Because they always get ready for tests and exams. And especially in the 8th grade of the primary school, the only thing which they have on their mind is tests, and examinations at the end. They find quick excuses for failure. They would say, oh, we didn't have a good, I'm sure you can finish that. We didn't have a good teacher. That's the first excuse, right? Our parents can't help us. But first of all, the teacher we had last year wasn't good enough. This year we have a better teacher, but last year we didn't have a good teacher. And all the previous years, we didn't have a good teacher. Rigid in approach and gives up easily, right? So if a student is like sometimes, you know, I'm patiently approaching that, but when they say, pani prosiła tylko o to, żebyśmy przetłumaczyli słówka. Czy możemy dzisiaj tylko przetłumaczyć słówka? And I say, no. The text is quite long, but I want you to have a look at the text and get the gist of the text. And we can only translate words if we decide that they are important words for the text. And we go step by step, and it usually takes an hour or an hour and a half to go through one task. And the attitude is, we need to know the words. We don't want to get involved with anything else. But at the same time, learned helplessness looks for approval in learning. So if they get a better mark, and actually we had the greatest success possible for the first time ever, not ever because they were in the 8th grade, but both of them actually got satisfactory net. And the mother said, I don't know how you did it. Naprawdę, nie wiem jak ty to zrobiłaś, ale one obie dostały 3 na półrocze. All right, we're going to continue, and I don't complain. I actually treat this as a challenge, and the sessions are actually, don't understand me wrong. The sessions are very nice because the girls are very, very nice. They are very nice, and I'm probably the only person who says, o fajnie, so już jesteście moje gwiazdeczki. No to możemy zacząć pracę. I speak a lot of Polish, which I wish I didn't speak so much Polish, but I speak a lot of Polish to them, not to frighten them off. And the exam, right? Egzamin ósmoklasisty niestety ma dużą część, która polega na po prostu tłumaczeniu, a nikt nie przewidział, że tłumaczenie to jest zupełnie inna umiejętność i dla mnie przyzwyczajonej do prowadzenia zajęć po angielsku. I just cannot understand why it's such a significant part of the exam is actually translating from Polish into English. Sorry, the other way around, from English into Polish. So, again, learned helplessness has a negative view of himself, and both girls have this kind of negative view of themselves, and they have a negative view of learning, that learning is difficult. So the question is, how can we help at this point in the 8th grade of the primary school? I hope that I'm going to continue with my talk, but in the meantime, if you could think of anything to help me cope with the situation, I would be most grateful. So the question is to you. What do you think? What can we do to help? The answer which I prepared is, we can help students develop their learning strategies, which is social effective strategies, cognitive strategies, and metacognitive strategies. So let's have a look at those now. And I'm going to show you examples from various course books, or I guess not so much, well, course books as well. And perhaps you've seen most of them, but today we're going to get kind of more systematic approach to the problem. All right, so let's start with social effective strategies. Well, the social effective strategies are the strategies that will boost their belief that they actually can do something. This is a task which I remember going through it with some people on our courses when we met. I asked you for an outline of your hand, and then together you could write various things on each finger depending on the topic. If you work with adults, we could talk about literature, and each finger could stand for a different type of literature that you like. But this time, with, I think it was second graders of a primary school, we practiced I can, things you can do. I can dance, I can run, I can jump, I can. Just showing them, yes, you can do a lot of things. Can you show me? It comes usually with can when you teach, but there is more to it. Because when you put all of that together, from little hands from all kids, you can have something like this. So who you've got in the background is our trainees from college, from the university, and half potatoes. It was autumn, and it was one of the first lessons. Not one of the first. It was one of the, like, at the beginning of the course, and all the hands, little hands, put together on little sticks. They were, look, you can do so many things. So you can do something. If you can do this, it means, well, you can actually learn English as well. Boosting their attitude to learning as well. Learning is brilliant because you can show that you've got more skills, more abilities. Unfortunately, with the children who I teach at the moment, the attitude is kind of, well, my mum doesn't like reading, or my parents are not good at maths, so they can't help them. My father was always very bad at maths, and I'm like him. It's genetic, right? So this social, effective attitude to learning and to yourself is extremely important. So it's one of the things that you can do to boost it, to boost your confidence, to boost your self-esteem by showing how many things you can do. You can also have, as you can see here, the tree of can, and this time the teachers prepared little leaves, and each part of it was actually leaf, and each bit of a leaf was a place for writing down for what kids can do. And then you had a beautiful poster of the tree of I can. And as you can probably, well, you definitely know, now the attitude to learning is very, very positive, because the assessment comes with what you can do and not looking for mistakes and what you can't do. So every time you go through the material with the kids, you go through various sections of grammar and vocabulary, you actually want kids to know what they can do after a series of lessons. So this is another, what we had was the social effective strategies. So let's press on now to cognitive strategies. And obviously cognitive strategies is how you actually deal with the language. This is one of the examples. You've got a stationary class. It's a drawing that comes from one of the books, but it's a book about teaching young learners. So you can hand in little labels, and kids have to think of whether it's a verb or a noun or adjective, but you can have different criteria and different ways of practicing vocabulary or grammar that you have. So the aim of cognitive activities is to develop students' ability to deal with linguistic information in an effective way. And I wonder how many of these activities you already know. For example, making mind maps, organizing vocabulary that you have into verbs or nouns or adjectives or adverbs, organizing into abstract and actually concrete verbs, categorizing, so positive words and negative words, positive features of character and negative features of character, and writing them down. Words which you associate with winter, autumn, summer, and you've got a mind map. How you remember a list of words, and that's an important aspect. After a class, the kids are left with, let's say, 20 words. So the question you can ask your kids is, all right, there are 20 words. How are you going to deal with them? How are you going to remember them? Sometimes the words that you have are unrelated. So what can you do? How can you link unrelated words to aid your memory? Because 20 words is a lot. Maybe you can tell them, all right, we've got 20 words, but I want you to choose 5 and make a story. Create a story in which you can use the words. Create a funny story and make sure that you use the words. Guess the meaning of unknown words in the text before checking it in a dictionary. This is just an example, which I'd like you to have a look together with metacognitive strategies. Because the cognitive strategy is actually analyzing the language, right? So you've got, let's say, the 20 words. And you know the words, you have already checked them, and you play with the words, you juggle with the words. But you need metacognitive strategies in order to deal with how to remember them and how to preferably also use them. One of the strategies that we're going to focus on is FAME, but let's have a look at this one. Plan, do, and review. So if you've got a text, right? Text. Some of the text for the 8th grade exam are quite long. So you say, all right, have a look at the text, and can you only decide on, let's say, 6 words that you need to remember in order to talk about a problem? Can you decide which, or 10 words, depends on how many words you well, as a teacher, you decide are important. Say, all right, so can you look at the text? Can you look at the words that you have got there? And can you plan what to do with them? For example, you can draw the words, so do it. Some words can be drawn, like animals, for example. Or once again, when you've got the weather, the temperature, you draw it, you do it. And then you review after some time, do I remember the words? But I guess a more effective metacognitive strategy would be look, cover, think, write, and check. And I'm going to show you in pictures in a moment. It's actually very, very similar. Basically, it's the same procedure as the FAME. Focus, act, monitor, and evaluate. We get back to the question in a moment, but right now I would like you to have a look at a graphic representation of it. Drawn, as you can see, by a kid. This list comes from the book by Robert Fisher, Teaching Children to Learn, and a child illustrated the procedure or the strategy like this. All right, so first you open a book, you look at the text, you look at the words that you have to learn. Preferably, you copy the words into your notebook rather than just having it in the book as you have seen before. All right, you've got your list. You also have a piece of paper or another book, all right, like this. You cover your list. Then you can even close your eyes. You try and remember the list in your notebook. Give yourself some time. Think of how you can link them or you visualize them. These are all things that you can offer to the kids when introducing the procedure to them. And then you say, all right, if you think you're ready and if you think you can remember the words which are covered, can you try and write them down? How many can you remember? Usually it's the last word which you can't remember. How many of these words? All right. You can tell your kids, look, you don't have to remember all of them. It's impossible. Have this kind of good attitude. If you can remember 4 out of 6, it's fine. Maybe next time when you look at the list, you remember all of them. And then you check the answer yourself. Compare the spelling, compare whether you can understand the meaning, and think about why it was difficult to remember this or that word. Why some words are easier and why some other words are definitely much more difficult. So let's have a look once again at this FAME procedure, because it's exactly the same one. So when you say focusing, focus, you look and you cover. So you focus. Can you focus on, let's say, 6 words only? Right? So focusing is where to start, how to start. All right, so how to start? I need to copy the words which I have to remember. Let's say in the 8th grade, okay, 6 words connected with the weather. 6 phrases, not just words, 6 phrases connected with the weather. That's how I'm going to start. I'm going to make a list, big letters, written legibly, all right? So that's what I'm going to start. I'm going to open my notebook and I'm going to start and write down the topic, the weather, and I'm going to write down the words which I need to remember. Boiling hot, freezing cold, and so on. What's the weather like in Rzeszów or Kraków or whatever place you get, London and other places? What's the weather like, right? So we've started. We focused on the 6 words. Then you act, right? Which means you cover it, you do something about it, right? You try and remember it in a certain sequence, starting from the coldest weather or starting from the hottest weather? I'll go from bottom up or from top down. Monitoring, what do I need to remember? I need to remember the spelling. I need to remember the meaning of the word, right? So you think, then you cover it and you write it down. Right? So you still acting, right? And monitoring how much of it you can actually do it, right? How much of the material can you actually write down? Then maybe only 3 words. And then you will find out that, well, actually it's quite challenging. But it's challenging because then you evaluate your work. Nobody else does it. Not a peer, not a teacher, not even a parent. You can do it all by yourself. Has the plan worked? You can answer yourself. Am I successful? Or what should I do to be better next time? I guess, you can introduce it at a very, very low level. Lower primary school, when they can read, just the introduction of letters, when you write, when you begin writing. You can have pictures and words to copy, for example, or you can have a list which you take from the book, which they only copy, and little drawings. I guess the acronym, which is so popular in English, and English is actually easy to create certain acronyms. So you'll be famous if you're good. Why not? Why not? So all of these are metacognitive strategies. Planning at the beginning is really important. And now that they have got the 8th grade exam, test ósmoklasisty, I guess the question that we have to answer is, what can you do to plan preparation for the test? We can have, at the moment we've decided we're going to have 1 task from a test each time we meet, and we meet 3 times a week. Or we can have a look at the test together, because they've got the same test. Libros. Oh, they sent me the Libros test. So we can have a look at it, and we can look what is required of them in each task, briefly, right? And then we can have a look at how much time we need for it. And lots of things that we need to consider. But there's going to be a certain system of working towards the exam, which is in April or in May. All right. So basically, I recommend this system, especially for vocabulary learning. But reflection is more than just trying to see whether you can remember words, or you can remember certain phrases. Because that's I'm trying to tell them, look, we're not learning words, we're learning very often phrases. Or what is important is seeing the whole sentence before deciding whether it's present simple or present continuous. So the question is that they need to reflect on, what are we learning? Why are we learning it? Why is it so important to know tenses? Why is it so important to know the difference between interesting and interested? How are we learning it? How are we going to learn the difference between excited and exciting, right? This reminds me of a situation when I asked them to show that they are exciting. And one of the girls said, ja już mam 15 lat I nie będę takich rzeczy robić. And I told her, look, I'm so much older than you are, and I'm going to do this. I'm going to show you that I'm excited and that something is exciting. But the answer was simple. Ja już mam 15 lat I ja tego nie będę. I would say this is also learned helplessness. Then the important question is, how successful is our learning? And what are we going to do next? All right, we've done this, and that. What are we going to do next? All right, I'd like to show you a short film, very, very short film. And this will take us to a primary school. It's the second grade in Radom, actually. Even if you have seen the film, it's very, very short. And this is a reflection that teacher runs with her class at the end of about a 45-minute lesson. I guess the lesson was a bit longer because the lesson was recorded.
Kochani, powiedzcie mi, co my dzisiaj robiliśmy na angielskim? Łapka w górę. Co poznawaliśmy dzisiaj? Robiliśmy o jedzeniu. Sit down. Brawo. A może w co się bawiliśmy? Łapka w górę, to pamiętam. To ma pamięć super. Snake dance. Jest, to jeszcze losowanie. Losowanie było też. Szukanie. Pewnie cały dzień szykowaliśmy się na piknik, a potem na pikniku się bawiliśmy, uczyliśmy, jak się trzeba zachowywać grzecznie na pikniku i nie tylko, że trzeba się z każdym pięknie dzielić. A powiedzcie mi, czy wy się w domku możecie pobawić w piknik z mamą, tatą, mother, brother? I bardzo was zachęcam do tego, żebyście w domku przygotowali swój koszyczek, swoje jedzonka dla mamy, dla taty. Wszystko sami zjecie?
Ja nie mam jedzenia.
Trzeba sobie przygotować. Jak mam przygotowała?
Losowanie. Kiedyś się z bratem o rok starszym bawiliśmy się w piknik i prawdziwe jedzenie.
Nie. I możecie nauczyć swoje rodzeństwo, a może mamę, jak się mówi. W ten sposób możecie spędzić super wolny czas po szkole. Thank you very much. Stand up and let's hold hands and say goodbye.
All right. Can you justify using Polish there? I guess this is the moment that even the most rigid teacher would say English lesson is for English only. You have to give in and you have to say it's so important to teach our children how to reflect on the learning that you can definitely do it in Polish. Oh, I mean, no doubt. And I would spend some time at the end of the lesson with smaller kids talking about what we did. And let me show you just a few more examples of evaluating and reflecting, which is so important when it comes to learning to learn. What do we evaluate? We evaluate our lessons and we evaluate our learning, all right? So what about my lessons? I don't like drawing because it takes too much time. The most boring thing for me is looking up words in the dictionary. What I like best about my lessons, what's most interesting about my lessons, then about my learning, what have I learned today? What can I do now? What am I good at? What I haven't managed? What I don't understand? What I have difficulty in? But these are the questions that you can ask. There are certain grids you can ask kids to fill in. For example, this one. And this is definitely for smaller kids. All right. Well, the smileys, right? I like, kind of, I'm not sure whether I like or I don't like. And the last one is, no, I definitely don't like it. I like learning English. I like my books. I like watching videos. I like listening to cassettes. I like singing songs. I like role play. I like playing games. I like learning about other people. I like reading stories. Perhaps you can also add a couple of things and just mark whether you like it, whether you, well, it actually doesn't matter to you whether it's there or not, and whether you don't like. You might ask yourself a question, will there be any child who would say, I don't like playing games? There might be some kids who say, I don't like playing games which are too easy or which are not challenging enough. And I guess there will be kids like that. Another example. All right. So what the teacher can produce, actually the teacher can do this. I guess this was written by native speakers who were native speakers of English, and they were commenting on things they did in English. But if the teacher prepares, I like listening to music when I am working. When you're reading a story, it's a good idea to look up every word you don't know in the dictionary. And then the kid just writes yes or no. I like playing games. Sometimes, you see, so it's not always that kids love playing games. I like acting. No. If you want to remember words, you must study them. Yes. Another one. This week's work. Useful activities for me, not so useful. And again, the kid wrote playing the game. So the game wasn't useful. But reading the magazine article was useful for this particular child. Another one. This week, and then again, the teacher can write. We sang a song about a spider. We made a poster. We made a birthday card. We read a story about a hungry caterpillar. And we played Simon Says. Write the activity you like best, number 1. The activity you like next, number 2, 3, 4, and 5. Would you like another one? For very, very small kids. How did you do? Choose and color. So you evaluate your learning. How did you do? You can just draw a face. This is an activity which I did with kids, with my trainees from the university. It was the 3rd grade, and that was the end of a unit. This self-assessment card was actually provided in the teacher's book, so we had to photocopy it, and the kids had to color the little bubble, thinking bubble there, whether if they liked everything, they color it green. If they don't like everything, they have to think about the color that they want to use with it. And if they don't know something for sure, then it's going to be in red. All right. The reaction of the, and you can check, as you can see, it's all I can things, right? So this was, the first one was listening. She did, or he did everything excellent. This was about naming things. Gdy z kimś rozmawiam, potrafię przywitać się, przedstawić, zapytać koleżankę, jak ma na imię i tak dalej. To jest bardzo trudne, bo to wymaga takiej metakognitywnej wiedzy. To jest opisywanie tego, co potrafimy zrobić. Jest to ogromnie trudne i pamiętam, że w momencie, kiedy dzieci to wykonywały na lekcji, trzeba było im przedstawić taką sytuację na przykład, zaaranżować sytuację, żeby one mogły powiedzieć, tak, potrafię przywitać się. To nie było proste. No to dziecko zdecydowało, że wszystko potrafi. To potrafiło przeczytać, no i tutaj było tak, świetne, super. W związku z tym studenci powiedzieli, po co pani to robi? Przecież oni i tak będą oszukiwać i wszyscy będą mieli zielone kartki. I tutaj wszyscy się bardzo studenci zdziwili, ponieważ były dzieci, które owszem miały zielone kartki, ale były takie. Listening fantastyczne, nazwanie już nie, bo zobaczcie, ile krateczek jest wypełnionych jako niestety nie potrafię nazwać. All right, przeczytać, no i and it's not even green, and it's just reddish, right? And the final, as you can see, hasn't finished yet. All right, and there were cards like this. I'm sorry, I should have one more. No, sorry. There was yet another one. No, I don't think we had a card which was completely read. But I remember one of the children asking me, a co mam zrobić, jeśli nie pamiętam tylko jednego? Czy mogę narysować całe zielone i kawałeczek czerwonego? They were extremely honest about it, and they were very, 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 very much involved. So you might ask yourself a question, why self-assessment is so important? Is it important? And what are the benefits? I see a lot of benefits of self-assessment. First of all, it's a revision of the language. Second one, there is a reflection on what is being taught. Awareness, what learners can do. Awareness of the strengths and weaknesses. Raising self-esteem. Wow, I can do so many things. Wonderful. Promotion of students' responsibility. And hopefully motivation to further work. But what's really, really important is that we fight with this learned helplessness. And you say, no, I don't want you to think that you know nothing, right? So from this learned helplessness, you go to mastery orientation, and hopefully after introducing it and going through it with your students, they will be willing to try hard tasks. They will view problems as challenges and not something they are punished with. They accept failure. All right, I haven't learned it for today, but I'll do it next time. They have a kind of a flexible approach, and they try other ways. They are self-motivated by learning, hopefully, and they will have a positive view of their competence and positive view of learning. So this mastery orientation is extremely important. There is a very, very interesting publication by Carol, oh gosh, I've forgotten. A promise, there's a kind of Dweck, right? Yes, Karen Dweck. Carol, it's a completely different, no, not completely, it's very much connected with that, but it will take yet another like one more session, hopefully stationary session, when we can exchange things and we can exchange views. And it'll be extremely interesting to talk to you about it, because she looked at it from yet a different point of view. But just remembering, Carol Dweck, hopefully might be yet one more session on learning to learn. The last slide I entitled "With a Little Help from the Teacher." The little is kind of in italics, because it's not little help. With a lot of help from the teacher, a lot of help from the teacher. But if they get the help on how to learn, if they are not left on their own, we achieve a lot. We achieve students who raise their awareness what language learning means, what it's all about. They develop language learning strategies. They increase the awareness of themselves, so they will know what the strong points and the weak points are. I don't have to tell you that most of them are dyslexic, or at least they believe that they are dyslexic. The two girls who I teach also are dyslexic. Yeah, they make spelling mistakes, but who doesn't? All right, but an excuse is they are dyslexic and they can have more time during the exam. They gain self-confidence and they raise their self-esteem. It really is important. So when at the end of our meeting, they'd say, "Oh, to nie było wcale takie trudne, a ja myślałam, że to będzie bardzo trudne i zrobiłam to." I think it's wonderful. And that's what we want. I want them to believe in themselves in any area of life, any walk of life. I want them to feel that they are really important and they can do things. And they change their mindset. Oh, this is Carol Dweck, right? In this book, Carol Dweck, she talks about how important the mindset is, czyli nasze nastawienie, nasz stan umysłu. Czyli nauczymy się albo nie nauczymy się czegoś, zależy od tego, jaki jest stan naszego umysłu. Jeśli się chcę nauczyć, jeśli będę uważała, że coś jest za trudne, to prawdopodobnie nie zrobię tego nigdy. So the mindset from learned helplessness to mastery orientation. And finally, they develop tools for independent learning. But we get it, we as teachers, we get an extremely important reward, which means we learn about our students, and we find out and we get to know who they are. So with a little help from the teacher, we can do miracles. Oh, I guess our time is up. I'd like to see your faces. Gosh, please. At least I can talk to you now, but I guess what I owe you now is a kind of a summary and reflection. But the reflection would be a talk, an interview, right? And the reflection would be, all right, which was useful for you and which was kind of something you have already known, something that you knew very well, so perhaps the session was a waste of time for you. The reflection might be, have you found any signs of learning to learn in the course book that you have? Have you ever considered a course book, choosing a course book, because it's got a very, very good learning to learn component? I think you can do a miracle. No i ostatnie słowo. Ja myślę, że jesteśmy w tej chwili w strasznie czarnej dziurze. Ta strasznie ziejąca czarna dziura to jest obsesja z egzaminami i testami i płacimy, albo te dzieci, które uczymy, płacą straszną cenę za to, że dorośli wymyślili, że koniecznie muszą być testy i że całe piękno nauczania właściwie redukuje się tylko do przygotowania ich do miernej jakości. No może wymazujemy, może nie miernej, ale przygotowania do egzaminów, które niekoniecznie są dobrym sprawdzianem ich wiedzy, a część testu ósmoklasisty, która polega na tłumaczeniu, jest po prostu jedną wielką pomyłką. Nie wiem, dlaczego tak jest, nie wiem, kto wymyślił to, może nie szukajmy winnych, tylko zastanówmy się, jak pomóc tym dzieciom, żeby nawet z tak trudnym zadaniem poradziły sobie te, które mają dysleksję. All right, thank you very, very much for today's meeting. As you can see, I'm very, very much involved in this subject, and actually, just because I've got a problem, I've got a challenge to solve. 2 little girls who will have to cope with eighth graders exam. I think I'll be back to Jarek now, and if you have any questions, then obviously I'm ready to face all the questions and all the challenges.
Zapraszamy zatem wszystkich do zadawania pytań i komentowania dzisiejszego spotkania. Możemy jeszcze chwilę poświęcić na ten właśnie element naszego dzisiejszego webinarium. Ja w międzyczasie, zanim być może pytania pojawią się na czacie, zaproszę jeszcze wszystkich Państwa do innej aktywności programu English Teaching, która jest w Państwa zasięgu. Zapraszamy do skorzystania z nowej i nieodpłatnej oferty szkoleniowej naszego programu. Już rozpoczęliśmy nabór na szkolenia warsztatowe online, podczas których można się spotkać z naszymi trenerami w sposób nieco bardziej interaktywny niż webinarium. Jesteśmy do Państwa dyspozycji w cyklu mniej więcej 2-miesięcznym. Najbliższe szkolenie już za 2 tygodnie. Rejestracja jest otwarta. Startujemy 20 2 stycznia, 22 lutego, przepraszam, 22, 24, 25. To jest poniedziałek, środa i czwartek o godzinie 18, półtora godzinne spotkania. Tym razem będzie to spotkanie pod tytułem Content and Language Integrated Learning. Będzie podczas tych 6-godzinnych warsztatów będą omówione między innymi zasady tej metodyki. Będzie można wziąć udział w lekcjach pokazowych. Serdecznie zapraszamy. Rejestracja jest otwarta na naszej stronie internetowej. W międzyczasie pojawiają się komentarze. Pani Paulina Mariola napisała, że wspaniałe było zakończenie dzisiejszego spotkania, trafione w punkt. Bardzo dziękujemy za ten komentarz. Doskonała prezentacja, cudowny akcent, bardzo przyjemnie się pani słucha.
Oh, where's the
Co na to?
question? A gdzie jest pytanie?
Pytania nie ma, ale komentarz jest bardzo
moje
miły.
pytanie było, czy macie jakieś propozycje, co ja mam z tymi dziewczynkami jeszcze zrobić, bo bardzo chcę im pomóc.
Może nie odpowiedź na pytania, ale komentarz do dzisiejszego spotkania. Nie wiedziałam, że podsumowania rozdziałów self-assessment dają tyle informacji dla ucznia i nauczyciela. Dziękuję.
Oj, dają bardzo dużo, bardzo dużo, bardzo dużo.
Kolejny komentarz. Niestety nauka pod testy jest bardzo trudna. Od nauczycieli wymaga się bardzo dużo. Są rozliczani z wyników egzaminów, a przecież grupy są różne i uczniowie są różni.
Tak, i bardzo, bardzo łatwo jest zabić całą tą przyjemność uczenia, bo ciągle myślimy, że my musimy przygotowywać pod testy, a przecież jest tyle pięknych rzeczy, które można byłoby z nimi zrobić, nawet online. No ale mamy ten test, który przeraża wszystkich. Tak, zgadzam się, absolutnie się zgadzam. Tak, zgadzam się. No ale może jakoś można przemycić. No właśnie, tylko dlaczego mamy to przemycać, a nie możemy...
No właśnie, Mariola, dlaczego to musi być przemyt? Dlaczego to nie może być taka normalność?
Dlatego, że doma ma 24 godziny, lekcja ma 45 minut, a teraz lekcje online mają 30 minut, a trzeba nauczyć różnicy między present simple a present continuous, a jeszcze jest 50 różnych słówek, a jeszcze mamy, no i tak dalej. No
A 30 minut to w sam raz na to, aby sprawdzić obecność, prawda?
No właśnie. Wiem.
Niestety, rzeczywistość nas chyba trochę przerasta. Ja jestem pod wrażeniem, jak nauczyciele radzą sobie z tym wyzwaniem, jakim jest nauczanie na odległość. Różnie bywa, lepiej, gorzej, trudniej, łatwiej, ale wszyscy się starają, prawda?
Bardzo się starają, wiem, że się starają. Studenci, ja mam kontakt tak na co dzień, no teraz jest przerwa semestralna, i jak popatrzymy na listę obecności, które nie muszę sprawdzać, bo system, my pracujemy na MS Teamsach, to system oczywiście wszystkich wypunktuje. Można natomiast, jeżeli się z powodu tych problemów z mikrofonami, no to zawsze można wyrywkowo prosić o odpowiedzi, i wtedy się okazuje, że przełapaliśmy jednego studenta, i to nie tylko ja, który loguje się na początku, a potem znika. Ale większość jest. I nawet zaczęli pokazywać swoje twarze, no co było ogromną przyjemnością. Bo przez pewien czas to tylko takie awatarki różne były. No i tak, to prawda, że ja nie chcę narzekać na nauczanie online, bo powiem szczerze, że to jest to, co trzyma mnie przy życiu i to jest to, co zawsze będę dziękowała za to, że mam możliwość pracy i możliwość kontaktu z studentami, czy tak jak dzisiaj z Państwem, z nauczycielami, chociaż nikogo nie widzę i nie możemy wymienić się informacjami na bieżąco, czy nie patrzymy sobie w oczy i nie możemy się przytulić nawet. No ale możemy być sobą i chyba wszyscy czujemy tę bliskość. Tym niemniej będzie trudno w reżimie sanitarnym uczyć w parach czy w grupach, uważać, żeby była odległość 2 metrów, to jest niemożliwe. No i ciężko jest, ale no, to musimy jakoś, to szczęście, że mamy to uczenie online. Tym niemniej ja uważam za największe nieszczęście, no to testy, ciągłe testy, które powinny być też jakąś takim wyzwaniem, taką, no też w jakiś ludzki sposób przerobione, a niekoniecznie straszyć złą oceną i krzyczeć na przykład. Ja muszę znać wszystkie słówka, bo inaczej pani będzie na mnie krzyczała.
Najważniejsze jest nasze pozytywne podejście, powiedziała pani Iwona, ale za chwilę również pojawił się kolejny komentarz, który mocno się, że tak powiem, zgadza z tym, co powiedziałaś przed chwilą, gdzie pani, chyba Joanna, napisała: chciałabym z moimi klasami więcej mówić po angielsku niż wykładać gramatykę, ale brak na to czasu na lekcji.
Dokładnie, no to samo. Także ja bardzo ambitnie zaczęłam z moimi dziewczynkami, chciałam po angielsku i zauważyłam, że po prostu no, musiałam się poddać. Teraz jestem w stanie wyegzekwować pewne rzeczy po angielsku, one do mnie mówią hi, how are you, I'm fine, no ale jak przychodzi do gramatyki, no to niestety robimy to po angielsku, po polsku dłużej, częściej. Słówka mogę starać się tłumaczyć po angielsku, ale at the end of the day, teraz ja znowu przechodzę na angielski, but at the end of the day, well, I elicited from them, but it's going to be in Polish. Och, tak, to prawda.
Dokładnie, bo podstawa programowa, bo to będzie na egzaminie, a prawdziwego z życia wziętego angielskiego mało, powiedziała nasza kolejna komentatorka i myślę, że to jest takie niestety podsumowanie codzienności. Mam nadzieję jednak, że te nasze pozytywne podejście nas nie opuści, czasu nie będzie brakowało, a te 12 minut niedoczasu, który dzisiaj sobie zagospodarowaliśmy, nie doprowadził do tego, że zanudziliśmy dzisiejsze audytorium. Dziękuję bardzo za dzisiejsze spotkanie i do zobaczenia
Do
za
zobaczenia.
tydzień. Do widzenia.
Do widzenia.